Yeah, I think.
Okay. Well, my name is Sandra Gilliland, and I teach psychology. I've been using LaunchPad for, I guess, almost 3 years now. When I came to LSU-A, my predecessor, whose position I took, had agreed with some crazy book rep from Macmillan to do a pilot of LaunchPad, but did not want to give up her previously used product. So she had one class with one product and another class with LaunchPad, right? And I taught them back to back and had different systems. It was a great way to see how the two products compared side by side, and a great way to age a couple of extra years. But at the end of the semester, I was given the choice of which product I wanted to continue with, and I overwhelmingly chose LaunchPad. It was so easier for me and so much easier for my students. So I had just far less questions as far as tech questions and issues overall. So I've been extremely pleased with the product since then. Like many of you, one of the issues we're facing is how do we demonstrate course alignment? And so my presentation today is focusing on just some things that I'm doing differently with LaunchPad to try to make sure that both in my online classes as well as my on-ground classes, that students clearly see why they're doing these assignments, why they're doing the LaunchPad assignments, why they're doing the videos, what is it that I'm hoping you get out of it. And so just trying to maintain a good communication pattern with that. So, hi. My clicker was working, and now it doesn't want to work anymore, so we'll see.
It was just wrong.
It was fine, and then it was not so fine. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so as I stated, my goals for my presentation today is just to demonstrate the course alignment in ways that we can do it with LaunchPad. Specifically, I'm going to give you 4 ways that I'm trying to demonstrate course alignment with this product. So the first one is just to simply communicate those objectives, right? And so I know several of you have mentioned that I need to tell my students this week or this unit, here's what you're expected to know by the end of this, and that's pretty standard with that. One of the things I appreciate about the LaunchPad product is that I can change the text images. This is an example from my abnormal psychology class. You can see I've changed the image there. I've labeled it week 1. If we were to pan out of this class, you can see it goes all the way weeks 1 through 16. This is the traditional on-ground course. In my child psychology class, each of those images is like a little cartoon that's kind of on topic, and so I can get, pretty creative with that. Likewise, I've changed the text, and so I probably could make the font a little larger, but you can see it has each of my objectives. And so the first one for the learning objectives for week 1, 1.1, we're going to review and discuss some of the difficulties of defining a person's behavior as abnormal. How am I going to measure this? Specifically through topic quiz number 1, where they're going to get the terms, and the discussion, where they're going to hit that discuss goal of that objective. So I'm not going to read through all of those, but you can see I've identified which specific activity we're doing that aligns with that specific goal for that particular week. The second one is that I can, of course, create and assign meaningful assignments. And so the learning activities provide weekly feedback to assess. Of course, we've looked at learning curve extensively today, but for any user, I really like that I can see how they're doing with these particular topics, and I'm very excited about the update of being able to eliminate topics that I'm not assessing for. I think it's really helpful for students if I say my goal this week is for you to learn the terms associated with schizophrenia, and then all of a sudden in the chapter it goes off on this tangent that I'm not talking about. I love that I can eliminate that now so that they can really zero in on the topic. I told you I'm going to assess this. They can see that I'm going to assess this, and they're getting that same verbiage and that same feedback. I wouldn't mind if I could change how the topics are labeled to align a little closer, but instead what I'm doing right now is changing my language to align with the text, just to better communicate with students. So the third way, of course, is that we can customize these assessments. And I am a huge fan of the test bank, how we create tests in LaunchPad. That's probably one of my favorite tools because there's just so much flexibility. And so, of course, you can use the quizzes as they come, which they're pretty good quizzes anyway. They pull from a wide range of questions. They do a pretty good job of covering the topics. But in order to demonstrate course alignment, one of the things I started doing is creating my own question banks. And so you can see the first one, this aligns with the first slide that I showed you. The first thing we're looking at is historical development. That's my verbiage. that aligns specifically with the same verbiage that I gave the student at the beginning of the week, right? So this is what I'm quizzing you on this week, is the historical development of how we look at abnormal behavior in psychology. And then what I've done is use the questions, I've looked through the questions that I really liked that covers that specific topic, that assesses that topic. I pulled them all into one bank, labeled that bank, and then I'm going to have them pull 5 questions from that. So this becomes a very useful assessment, right? And I can see that and my student understands. Like many of you have said, I don't give study guides, but I will say the topics that we'll be covering on this particular assessment are the historical development, contemporary psychology, psychology of science, and research methods. And because I'm trying to align that closely with the wording in the textbook, they're going to quickly be able to know which sections to read and to assess, and they've already seen that in their learning curve as well. So again, it builds on one another, hopefully in a way that they can, oh, I don't know what I did. Okay. New clicker. So the last thing, and of course we've heard several presentations on this today, but is to, with that, assessment's only useful if then I can gather my data, right, and I can make sure that it actually is doing what I need for it to do. And LaunchPad really provides many tools for doing that. I can see how they're doing on individual assignments, such as the same topic quiz, which students are struggling. And then, and I think someone had mentioned this before, I can look at the individual questions and make sure that the questions are meaningful and they're useful. I can look at why it was deemed not a particularly good question to flag these for me, and then I can drop it automatically. And I like that because of the way it'll adjust their score appropriately, and so that they'll still have the same score distribution based on the points that they actually had, and so it'll adjust their percentage, which is fantastic, so I don't have to do any of that. And so I think that, again, I think our goal is to communicate with students clearly. I think when I first started teaching 10 years ago, I was really bad about saying, your exam is over chapter 1. As if so that somehow helps my students in any way, right? And they're like, thanks a lot, that's 70 pages, right? So we'll just get right on that. Or worse, I would say it's on chapters 1, 5, and 8, right? And they're completely lost. And so by being able to hone in and be specific about my learning objectives, create meaningful assignments, and then gather that assessment data, my students have a better experience, and ultimately they get more out of the classes, and I do as well. So LaunchPad is an exciting tool. I love the diversity. You can tell that Macmillan is passionate about getting feedback from faculty members, even bringing us here to get that feedback, because it is interactive, and it is, this isn't here's a product and make it work for you, but here's a product and, you know, change it and adapt it and let us know if it's not working for you, and we'll make sure that it does. And so I've been very impressed with that. And I think that it can help us ultimately meet our learning objectives, which Sachs is a big fan of. So that's all I have for you. See how I got my back in schedule here?